Welcome, partner, to the Old West Traveler, where we saddle up and ride back to the days of dusty trails, frontier legends, and untamed history. This ain't just history books. These are the real stories of the men and women who carved their names into the Wild West. The battles, the outlaws, the showdowns, the untold legends. You'll find them all right here. So grab a strong cup of coffee, pull up a chair, and let's take a journey back into time when the West was wild and every day was a fight for survival. This here's the story of Guy Weadick and the Calgary Stampede. Well, now, let me tell you a tale about a fellow named Guy Weadick. You ever hear of him? Nope. Well, I'm sure shooting you ought to. If you ever seen a rodeo, watched a cowboy ride a buckin bronc, or heard the crack of a whip in an arena, you owe a whole lot to that guy. He was the man who took rodeo from being just a cowboy's pastime to something the whole world wanted to see. And let me tell you, it wasn't easy. See, back in the early 1900s, rodeos weren't like they were today. They were small-time affairs, just ranch hands getting together, showing off their ropin and riding skills, maybe taking home a few bucks or a bottle of whiskey for their troubles. There weren't big purses, or their grandstands weren't packed with city folks cheering them on. No, it was just something cowboys did for fun to prove who was the best. But Guy Weadick, he saw something different in this. The guy was a cowboy, but he had a flair for showbiz. He spent some time at the vaudeville performer doing roping tricks and fancy riding. He had himself a wife from Flores Duluth, who was a hell of a trick roper herself. They made a living traveling the country, performing in Wild West shows and rodeos. But that wasn't enough for old Guy. No, see, he didn't just want to be part of the show. He wanted to make the show. So in 1911, Weadick got himself a crazy idea. What if he could put on the biggest, grandest rodeo the world had ever seen? Not just a local cowboy contest, but something that'd bring the best of the best from all across North America and make folks take notice. A real spectacle. But there was a problem. He didn't have the money, and he didn't have the place to do it. Now, most men would have given up right then and there. Oh, not old Guy. He knew he needed a big city, one that had cowboys, but also enough businesses to back his idea. That's when his friend H.C. McMullen, a livestock agent for the Canadian Pacific Railway, told him about Calgary, Alberta. He said it was a fast-growing town full of cattlemen who made their fortunes in the beef business. If anyone had any money and the love for the cowboy way of life, it was them. So in March of 1912, Guy packed up, tipped his hat to Flores, and took off for Calgary, hoping to find himself some backers. He talked to ranchers and businessmen and anybody who'd listen. Most of them laughed in his face. Too big, too risky, too crazy, they all said. Well, Guy wasn't the kind to take no for an answer. Just when things weren't looking grim, along came a fellow named Addison P. Day. Now, Mr. Ad Day wasn't just a cattleman. No, he was a Texan-turned-Albertan who knew rodeo. He'd put on smaller contests himself and saw the potential in what Weadick was dreaming up. He put up $10,000 of his own money into the pot and offered up his string of bucking horses to get things rocking. Well, that got the attention of four of Calgary's richest cattlemen, George Lane, Pat Burns, A.E. Cross, and Archibald McLean. Folks called them the Big Four. They saw what Weadick was trying to do, and they believed in it. With their financial backing, the Calgary Stampede was born. The first Stampede kicked off on September 2nd, 1912, and it ran for 5 days. And let me tell y'all, it was something to see. Cowboys from all over came riding in. Texans, Montanians, Canadians, and even some Mexican vaqueros. Why, the best riders and ropers in the world, they were there to prove who was the toughest. And that crowd, well, thousands of folks showed up, packing the grandstands, sitting on the fences, even climbing trees just to get a look at the action. The biggest events included saddle bronc riding, steer roping, bulldogging, and trick riding. Some of the winners that year were Emroy Lee Grand of Alberta taking the saddle bronc riding, Joe Gardner of Texas winning steer roping, and Fanny Sperry Steele of Montana claiming the women's bronc riding title. By the end of it, the event had grossed $210,000, a fortune in those days. Calgary had itself a rodeo like no other, and Weadick, well, he just made history. Now, you would think with that kind of success, the Stampede would become an annual event. But nope, Weadick couldn't get the backing he needed for another one right away. In 1914 and 1915, there was no Stampede. Instead, Guy got wrapped up in another big idea, the New York Stampede in 1916. Now, New York ain't exactly cowboy country, but Guy figured if he could bring rodeo to the big city, he'd make it even bigger. He put together an 8-day event with $50,000 in prize money, but it was a disaster. A streetcar strike and a polio outbreak kept folks from showing up, and worse, the prize money didn't get paid out. Weadick took the fall, and it nearly ended his career. But there was one thing about Guy Weadick, he was not about to give up. So in 1919, after World War I, the Big Four got back together with Weadick and brought the Stampede back as a war-end celebration. The event was even bigger than the first one, and it cemented the Stampede as part of Calgary's identity. By 1923, the Calgary exhibition decided to make the Stampede a permanent part of its annual affair. Weadick had won. The Stampede was now an annual event. Weadick spent the rest of his life writing about cowboys, telling their stories, and promoting the rodeo way of life. His wife, Flores Ledoux, passed away around 1960, and he soon moved to Phoenix, Arizona. He later remarried and settled down in San Jose, California. Then one day, he wasn't feeling right, and they took him to the hospital, and 2 days later, he was gone. A heart attack took him at 79 years young. But his story didn't end there. His body was sent back to Alberta, and he's buried not too far from the Stampede grounds where his dream had come to life. And so next time you see a cowboy riding a bronc or you hear the roar of that Stampede crowd, you just remember, it all started with one man and a dream too big to fail. That's Guy Weadick's legacy, and it ain't ever going to fade away. Well now, partner, that just about wraps it up for this tale of the Old West. But the Frontier's got plenty more stories waiting to be told, and I sure hope you'll stick around for the next one. If you've enjoyed this ride through history, go and hit that like button, and if you ain't already subscribed, please do so you don't miss our next adventure. And hey, why not share this story with a buddy or two? The Old West wasn't built by one man alone. It was built by folks telling stories, passing them down, and keeping the Old West alive. Until next time.